Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Cryptosis, Celestial Death, out March 7th on Century Media Records. The album has 12 tracks, 49 minutes in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. They are a Dutch metal band. When it comes to the design of this record, this album is well crafted. It's an album that's put together in a way that makes the overall listening experience of the record a lot easier. It makes the album easier to digest, easier to get into, really easy to follow, and that's an important aspect of this record, so you're able to connect more, not just with the individual themes of the songs, but with the overall concept that really connects this album as a whole. So having a structure that guides the listener, not just having a sense of beginning, middle, and end, but really guides the listener through the experience of the record, makes this a much better album all around. Once you start to get into the sound, this album doesn't follow one specific prototype. It doesn't follow one specific genre. This album actually brings elements of black metal, death metal, thrash metal, progressive metal, brings everything, even some technical elements as well. It brings everything into the forefront, which allows them to create a more dynamic album all around. The songs don't all sound the same. They don't all have the same attributes. This ability to bring in different influences definitely creates natural ebbs and flows throughout the album, giving each song almost its own unique fingerprint, and at the same time allows them to be more creative when telling the individual stories within the tracks. If a song needs to be a little bit darker, then you're going to have a little bit more of a black metal influence. If the song needs to be a little bit more driven because it's trying to create a picture of movement, then you're going to have some more thrash metal elements. So it's an album that plays really well with everything that is at its disposal in order to create a more overall complete experience, a more natural sounding album. The only thing I wasn't completely sold on as far as the overall soundscape is concerned is the orchestral pieces that the record has. This is a more cinematic sounding album, and it's a more open sounding album because of it. I understand the themes, I understand the concept, and I understand where that idea comes in order to bring those themes and that concept to life. But once you start to overuse, and not only overuse, using a very predictable orchestral pieces in terms of what they're trying to give the songs, always trying to give it this much bigger bandwidth, always trying to give this more dark cinematic experience, it allows the songs from one spectrum to start to become a little bit predictable. The songs have a lot of individuality to them. Like I said, the influences that come in on the sound really allows these songs to have a very significant different fingerprint. But when you have an element that stays very linear throughout the entire record, and it's always used almost with the same goal in mind, it takes a little bit away from that sense of individuality that the individual songs have, and it allows the whole record to feel a lot more balanced and a lot more cohesive sound-wise. It's almost like you have two driving forces, one trying to create a much open, organic sounding album, and one that does the complete opposite from that because it makes the songs feel like they're following more of a straight line all the way through. Now, some of the great elements within the sound, it's definitely the drums and guitars. I want to mention the drums first because the drum sound on this album, it far surpasses the drum sound on the debut record. It's a much better sounding record from that standpoint. It has a lot more life, it has a lot more energy, it has a lot more size. I think they could have even used it a little bit more for size and even at times for atmosphere, so they wouldn't depend as heavily on that orchestral side of the tracks. Once it comes into the guitars, a lot of the direction of these songs, a lot of that individual fingerprint of these tracks is really defined by the guitar sound. Sometimes a little bit more melodic black metal with a more narrow perspective, then opening up a little bit more if it sounds a little bit more thrashy or if it has a little bit more of a death metal essence. The guitars really offer a wide palette of sounds and of experiences that helps increase the presence of the overall soundscape and of the record itself. Another element on this album that's very consistent, it's definitely the vocals. The vocals don't change that much. The vocal approach stays actually very compact throughout the entire album. I don't mind that because that's really their approach, that's their style, and I don't think a record like this really needed much more than that. It was a sense of balance that fit the record well, it fit the sound well, it fit the concept and themes really well. So I felt like the vocal performance all around actually added great qualities to this album and to the songs, because it emphasized some key moments just by not going too far off the beaten path and staying a little bit more compact and a little bit more in the box. So when I look at this overall record, I see a much better crafted and executed album than its predecessor. Definitely feeling bigger, brighter, lighter at times, with a dark ambiance to it, obviously, but more organic. This feels like an album that sounds a lot more natural. It doesn't try to pigeonhole every song into a very robotic perspective. It has more of a natural feel to it. But I honestly feel like the more cinematic side of the record, specifically when you start to go with the orchestrations, always with the same intent and purpose, and with a very similar output sound-wise, that counterbalances all the diversity that the record has. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Ascending. Great guitar sound, great guitar sounding song. The drums feel very explosive on this track. Really both elements matching the overall drive and heaviness that the track offers. It's a very heavy and driven song with a great dark atmosphere, which is something that stays consistent throughout, but this song really emphasizes that dark atmosphere, and that dark atmosphere is enhanced by those orchestrations, by those electronic elements that give a very robust atmosphere to the track and a very robust sound as well to the way the song comes across. It allows the song to have a little bit more size and to not just be super driven and super melodic. It is super driven, super melodic in the chorus, but outside the chorus it gains a little bit more size. It becomes a little bit more of a wider track, if you will. Then you have Absent Presence. Very intriguing opening. It's almost like a Hitchcock style opening in terms of how the song brings you in with some breadcrumbs. It doesn't offer everything right from the get-go. It allows the track to kind of develop, so it's a really cool way of introducing this track, having that more built-in intro into the way the song leads you into the meat and potatoes of the track, if you will. And then you have a very dark and sinister sound and atmosphere. This is definitely a song that matches well the darkness of the sound with the darkness of the atmosphere. I love the bass sound on this track, really pops, and it adds to that darkness. It adds to that overall essence of the song. And then you have this more almost atmospheric melodic black metal sound and experience that permeates throughout the entire track, and it works really well on this song. It really helps push this song, and it helps push the song forward, because the drums give it some size, but the guitars with its melody, with its drive, with its punchiness, really narrow the song down. So it's a track that always feels like it's trying to go a little bit wider, but it has elements that are a little bit more narrow. Very interesting track all around. Last but definitely not least, In Between Realities. I like this track because this track is very different from the previous two. The previous two that I mentioned had that orchestrational pieces that add that cinematic essence to the songs and had them very consistently from beginning to end. This track, In Between Realities, doesn't. It feels more stripped down, it feels more raw, it feels more natural, it feels more black metal, very penetrating, with very penetrating riffs, great bass sound once again, complementing the drums extremely well, and it becomes one of the most direct songs, one of the most interesting songs, because in a sea of tracks that has all of this atmosphere, all of this consistency, having a song that loses a little bit of that and gives more emphasis on the drums and guitars to paint the picture, and to paint the picture of darkness that the song has, it changes the way you view the track. It really creates some ebbs and flows within the track listing of this album, and it really helps separate the track that comes before from the track that comes after, with this sense of uniqueness squeezed in between. This is it, Cryptosis with Celestial Death, out March 7th on Century Media Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.